Can you hear me? All right. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. I think I had two I had these headphones on too, and I realized that they were on. I tried to shut them off, and I think it just like completely messed up the Bluetooth. Okay. Fantastic. You guys can hear me. All right. I think I just tweeted it out again. So hopefully we can get everyone back in here. Let's wait for everyone to get back in. Oh man, I knew that was going to happen. We made it through the whole week with no technical difficulties. I was like, at some point, something's going to happen. So at least we got through the Fuller Jared Cook stuff before we had a disaster, and now we're just moving on. And we can stay for a while. I'll answer a ton of questions just because I feel bad that we had the technical difficulties. I'm sorry, everybody. Do you forgive me? Oh no, we're gonna do one tomorrow. Don't worry. All right. Oh wow, Eddie Jackson deleted his tweet, did he? Amazing. All right. Looks like we got some people back in here. That was an unfortunate occurrence. Start getting your questions here in a sec. All right, so where were we? Dan Feeney. So Feeney signed a 1-year deal. I think it was 1 year of $3 million deal with the Jets. My buddy Brian Costello had the details there. And he had it as, I think, 1 year. Let's look. 1 year, 3.5. 1 year, $3.5 million with up to 4.25 in incentive. So, like, that's not a very big deal. That's like a prove it deal, right? So, Chargers probably could have had him back if they wanted him. I think that was sort of an indication of what the organization thinks about Dan Feeney. They had high hopes for him. I think they were expecting more out of him this season, considering he got the full year to start there at center. He'd kind of been a guard, and Pouncey had been in and out and injured, and so he'd kind of been moving around. He hadn't really gone into a season with the job, with the Chargers saying to Dan Feeney, okay, you are our starting center. That was this season. So he needed to step up and show the organization that he was going to be able to be the center of the future, the long-term answer at that position. And it didn't come to fruition, He was a little too inconsistent. You saw these flashes, especially week 2 against the Chiefs. I thought he played a really good game against the Chiefs, but he just had these fluctuations, these inconsistencies, particularly in pass protection. And I think that Patriots game, we've talked about it this week. They really struggled to deal with stunts in games up front. And that's on the center, Ultimately, the center has to be communicating. The center has to be the one reading and reacting and to defend against those stunts in games. And for those that don't know, stunts in games basically just means you're rushing 4 guys, but you're taking your defensive end, for example, and rushing him up the middle, taking your defensive tackles and bringing them to the outside. So you're getting a lot of crisscrossing, and it's meant to distract the lineman up front. So you think the defensive end is going to come around this way, right, around the edge. Instead, he comes up the middle. So the tackle has to pass him off to the guard or the center, The guard in the center have to pass the defensive tackle off to the right tackle or the left tackle. So it takes a lot of communication. It takes a lot of cohesion to be able to effectively defend and block, right, against stunts and games. The Chargers were horrible at it. And a lot of that falls on the center ultimately. You know, you also talk about having a very inefficient running game. That a lot of that also falls on the center. You know, the center is a huge part of the running game, especially in terms of breaking 3 or 4 yard runs into 10 or 11 yard runs. That's the center, right? The center's got to get on a man and get to the second level to take on a linebacker to really open up those holes for your running backs. And it just wasn't consistent enough. Now, do I think he could eventually develop? Do I think he could eventually develop into a good player? Yeah, but right now he's a backup. You know, he's a guy that can play both guard spots, has a lot of experience, has started at center, and he's a good insurance policy to have on your roster. And that's what I think the Jets did with Dan Feeney. But he's a guy you can start, you can sign to be your starting center, to be your starting guard. I don't think so. I don't think he's at that level at this point in terms of his consistency. So where does that leave the Chargers? They need a right guard. You know, the center position is solidified, right? They got Corey Linsley, and they still have Scott Quisenberry under contract. In my opinion, Quisenberry is a fine backup center. Okay, they've got Filer at left guard, Linsley at center. They really need a right guard because they don't have anyone on the roster that can start there. So what do? Re-sign Forrest Lamp. I sort of group him in with Feeney. I saw a lot of similarities in how those two guys played this year. Lamp was, he had these flashes in these moments where you saw, okay, that's why they took him in the second round, but he hasn't gotten enough playing time because he's been so injured to have that consistency. So I don't know if I'm the Chargers, if I'm running the show, I don't know if I can trust Forrest Lamp to be the starting right guard. So the guy that I think makes a lot of sense is Larry Warford, former Saints right guard. Opted out of the season last year because after he got cut by the Saints for COVID reasons. He's on the market. He's available. And that's a guy that has a lot of familiarity with Joe Lombardi. Again, we talked earlier. I might have been in the other stream before I screwed it up. But Jared Cook is a guy who can help bring some of these Sean Payton concepts to the Chargers. Help Joe Lombardi bring his offense to this roster, right? That's what Jared Cook is a guy who spent 2 years in there. Well, Larry Warford spent 5 seasons, I believe. Let's look. Larry Warford spent 3 seasons in that Saints offense, right? That's a guy you bring in. He can still play at a high level. He can still be a serviceable, functional starting guard, and he can help Joe Lombardi bring some of those Saints concepts to the Chargers. That's a guy that makes a ton of sense for me, and a guy that you could probably get at relatively cheap, considering that he is coming off a season in which he didn't play, and typically that's going to lower a guy's value. So I think it makes sense financially. It makes sense schematically. So that's what I would do. I would sign Larry Warford as my right guard. Then you're in really good shape, right? You got center, left guard, right guard that you've figured out in free agency. You've got Brian Bulaga at right tackle, who you signed last year in free agency. And you go and you sign a left tackle of the future in the first round. Maybe it's Rashawn Slater. There is a chance Rashawn Slater falls to 13. And then all of a sudden, look at what you have on the offensive line. Got Rashawn Slater, who some people, there are people who know the offensive line who love this kid, right? Love him. Think he's the best tackle in the draft. Okay. If he falls to 13, you've got Rashawn Slater at left tackle, Matt Filer at left guard, Corey Linsley at center, Larry Warford at right guard, Brian Bulaga at right tackle. Like, that's a good offensive line. Now you're working with something. All right. You're not throwing these former draft picks out there hoping that you can see this development and that it's all going to come together and that you're going to have an average offensive line. You can put that group of 5 out there and be like, all right, we got a shot to be a legitimate offensive line. All right. One that's going to be able to have an efficient running game. That's going to protect our quarterback, something we can rely on. And frankly, something we could look at as a potential strength of the team. Even when the Chargers have been really good, even in 18, when they made their run, It's not like they had this dominant offensive line. It was a good enough offensive line. It was good enough. It was fine, right? But it wasn't like we have a good offensive line. It was just serviceable. Pouncey was a big part of that. Russell Okung was playing some good football, but Dan Feeney was in the mix there in 2018. You had Michael Schofield, but it wasn't like you had this outstanding offensive line. It was just good enough. And Phillip was getting the ball out super quickly, and they had an outstanding defense with a ton of talent. But that's what that combination was in 18. It wasn't like, they had the Bucs offensive line of this year, right? Who could just move people out of the way and dominate like they did in the Super Bowl. It wasn't that, So that's what you're looking for. That's what you're striving for if you're the Chargers. And so that's one avenue there without spending a lot more money than they've already spent. Like there is a scenario where they get Kyle Fuller and Larry Warford. I think that's on the table completely in terms of how much cap space they have left. Okay. Last thing is Troy Hill. Troy Hill signed for 4 years, $24 million. That's a good deal. Like that's a deal I think that would have made sense for the Chargers. Now the question is, maybe they thought that Troy Hill, Staley obviously knows the guy, knows him as a player. Maybe they think he's a better slot guy than he is outside guy. Now he played both. He played outside and inside for the Rams, more slot than outside. But maybe Staley's like, this guy is more of a slot guy, and we need like a legit boundary corner because Chris Harris is our slot guy. That's a possibility. I thought he made a lot of sense because of his familiarity with the scheme. 4 years, $24 million, $6 million in AAV. That's a pretty nice contract for a corner who played some good football last year. Chargers opted not to do it. And so they're still looking for that third corner. Now, not signing Troy Hill has now opened the door to Kyle Fuller, hypothetically. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise, but you would think that if the Chargers really wanted Troy Hill, they could have given him that contract or a little bit more than that contract. Didn't turn out. They're still looking for that third corner. Maybe they go into the draft for it. And this is what I was talking about at the top, I guess in the previous stream. But you already have two corners that are on veteran contracts between Chris Harris and now Michael Davis, who signed earlier this week. 3 guys at one position on relatively expensive veteran contracts is not exactly a by-the-book way to allocate your resources, right? You want to spread your money out through various premium positions and important positions. But in theory, if your quarterback's on a rookie deal, which that's not in theory, that's a fact. The theory part of it would be if your left tackle is also on a rookie deal, all of a sudden you got 2 of the more important positions on your roster making minimal money, below market level money. And that would give you the freedom, right, to spend money elsewhere and hypothetically have 3 veteran contracts at cornerback. It's all about how much Brandon Staley values these different positions. And that's not something at this point that we're super aware of because we haven't spent a lot of time with him, obviously, and we haven't seen him coach any football with the Chargers. So I think it's an option. But obviously the Chargers didn't want to be aggressive in their pursuit of Troy Hill, and he signs with the Browns. All right. Those are all the topics that I wanted to get to. I know that was pretty long-winded and a lot of stuff, but it was a big day. So let's get to some of your questions, and we'll go for a decent amount of time because I know the other stream pooped out. So, and maybe we'll get a little news on the stream, huh? Wouldn't that be fun? All right. I'm bummed because I'm sure there are a ton of good questions in the other stream that I missed. All right, let's get through this a little bit. Would you have preferred Ertz for a 5th or the Cook signing? I think I would have preferred Ertz for a 5th, but my read on the situation is that, the Chargers and Bills were probably both offering late round picks, a 5th maybe, and the Eagles were looking for a 4th or a 3rd, in a pick swap or a 4th straight up. Chargers or Bills weren't willing to go there. Harry Rosen with the Eagles was holding strong in his position. And the Chargers said, screw it. We can get Jared Cook for $4.5 million. We're out. So now the Eagles are in a tough spot where their market has diminished pretty significantly. And they're probably not, at this point, they might have had a fifth on the table, but now they're probably not going to, they might get a seventh out of it and a player maybe. So if the Eagles would have agreed to a fifth, I would have done it, but I don't think that would have gotten it done, or else would be a Charger. So, I think Cook is probably better than giving up a fourth for Ertz based on his cap hit. All right. You think the chances are much better that Slater is still there at 13 now that the Niners have re-signed Williams? Yes, 100% yes. Yeah. I think the chances have gone up significantly since Williams re-signed with the 49ers. I think that's a really good point. What Twitter accounts do you have notifications on for? Rappaport, Schefter, Garofolo, Deanna Rossini. I got Gil, like all the Chargers beat writers. I got Gil, Jeff, Fernando, Joe Reedy. I got Albert Breer, Phil Yates, Pro Football Talk. What else? I got the Chargers on tweet notifications. Too many. Probably a good amount though, because I'm always on top of stuff. All right. Let's see what else we got. Thoughts on Desmond King signing for the Texans? 1 year, $3.5 million. I tweeted out what I thought. The fact that he signed for that proves that what Telesco got for him on the trade market was really good value. Because at that AAV at $3.5 million, it's either going to count as a 7th rounder or a 6th rounder in the comp pick formula. Okay, so it likely would have gotten canceled out, but that's the value of the contract. A $3.5 million AAV is either a 7th rounder or a 6th rounder in the comp pick formula. What Telesco did was get the first pick of the 6th round, and he gets it immediately in this draft, as opposed to having to wait a year, which you do for the comp pick. So I think my main takeaway from that is that it proves that Telesco made a good deal at the deadline. Dory Jackson, I've talked about him before. I think that he makes sense. It's just about the money. So I'm seeing a lot of Kareem Jackson. He was more of a strong safety in the Broncos scheme, not a free safety. Justin Simmons was their free safety. So from a familiarity standpoint, it makes sense, but from a specific positional fit, I'm not sure it makes the most sense. But I wouldn't be shocked if we saw that come to fruition. What else we got? Do I think the Chargers send someone else by Friday? Yeah, I think so. Deshaun Watson. I don't know if that's a question, but did you forget who your quarterback is? It's pretty darn good. Justin Herbert. Pretty good. Pop, can he kick field goals? I can. Career long is 45. Funny story, actually. When I was covering the Jets early on in my career, I made a bet with the Jets PR staff that I could kick a 40-yard field goal. So they took the bet, but the stipulations of the bet were that they could spring it on me at any point. So at any time, any day I was at the facility, they could be like, all right, time to kick. So one of the last days of the season, I'm wearing jeans, a flannel, and Vans. They come into the locker room. They're like, all right, we're going to kick the field goal. So I went out into the Jets indoor practice facility, which is right outside the locker room, buried a 40-yard field goal in front of the special teams coach, Brant Boyer. And there's video of it on Twitter if you're looking for it. So the answer is yes, I can kick field goals. Under pressure, too. All right, what else we got? Malik Hooker, we've talked about him. I worry about guys with Achilles injuries, man. That's just my opinion. What else we got? What do you think of Elijah Vera Tucker at 13? So yeah. So here's how it's going to work. If Slater is there at 13, that's the pick. Allen Robinson has officially accepted his franchise tag. Oh my God, Justin Fields ran a 4.41. Good grief. That's so fast. Oh my God. I wonder if that's the fastest a quarterback has ever ran. Justin was 4.68, I think. Good God, golly. I think I ran like a 5.05 at Chargers training camp in 2019. Someone can fact check that. Skip Powers, former Chargers PR guy, can fact check that for me. Yeah, so if Slater's there at 13, that's the pick, 100%. Now, if he's gone before then, Chargers have a decision. I think they got to go offensive line, right? Do they think Elijah Vera Tucker is going to be a tackle in the NFL, or is he a guard? That's the real question. If they think he's a tackle, sure. I mean, his tape is really impressive, and he is a polished player already. If they don't think he's going to be a tackle, or if they have some reservations about whether he will translate to tackle, then it's probably Christian Darrisaw, because he's the more prototypical left tackle in terms of size, measurables, those sorts of things, right? And Elijah Vera Tucker was a guard in college until Austin Jackson left and they kicked him out. Darrisaw has always been a tackle. So it would be between those two guys. But because they've invested in guard and free agency, I think they got to find a left tackle, right? So that could change. That could absolutely change. If they go out and sign one of these left tackles that's available, Eric Fisher, Bobby Massey, Riley Reef, any of these guys, right? That changes things because now you got your starter there and you can maybe take Elijah Vera Tucker as a guard to really, really invest in the offensive line. You could take a corner, you could take an edge rusher, get a little more flexibility if you spend that money on a tackle in free agency. All right. D-line help? Possible. I think that's more of a draft need. I think they would fill that in the draft. There's going to be some nice defensive linemen available on day 3. That could be nice, like rotational pieces. But they need a little more depth there. Absolutely. You know, they got Justin Jones, they got Jerry Tillery, they got Linval Joseph, they got Cortez Broughton, Braden Fajoko, but definitely could use an infusion of talent there. With Joey Bosa, he's going to be shifting more to an edge role in the defense. So he's not really going to be used on the interior of the defensive line that much. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to be used there at all because he has that ability. He has that size, and he's fantastic with his hands. So he could be used in there, but he's just a more effective player as an edge rusher, obviously. You know, that's where he's made his name in the NFL. So I could see them absolutely looking into a defensive line in free agency, but I would more see it as a draft need. So, oh, you know what? I forgot to put the link to the subscription in here. Can you guys hear me? It said my connection was a little bit. Let me know. Today is the day of technical difficulties. Let me know if you can hear me. Yeah? Cool. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you being so responsive. Let me just make sure. All right, I'm seeing some questions about Melvin Ingram. Now, we talked earlier in the week about how, if his market kind of diminishes over the course of the week, there's a scenario where the Chargers could get him back on a 1-year deal that's really cheap. The longer he goes without signing, the more likely that scenario becomes. So let's say it gets into next week, Monday, Tuesday. Melvin Ingram still hasn't signed. He doesn't have many suitors. He doesn't have that much of a market. Could the Chargers bring him back on a 1-year, $6 million deal, 1-year, $5 million deal, depending on what his market is? I think that can make a ton of sense. Knows the building. Chargers know exactly what they're getting in him. Fantastic leader, right? I think that can make some sense. All right, let's keep going through some questions. I'm out of coffee again. I need to start making coffee before I do these things because look at that. 1 sip. The amount of coffee I have drank this week to give you guys all of this content. It's because I care and I love you guys. All right. Sam Cosby. We actually talked about him yesterday. He's like a super athletic guy, but based on my conversations with Dane Brugler, our draft guy, it seems like he's going to be more of a second round guy. I don't think he's really a 13th overall pick guy. More of that athletic, developmental type piece that, left tackle that you might find in the second round. So that's where Cosby is. Well, so someone's telling me that I should just buy it by the half gallon. But I like my coffee hot, but then I just make a lot of it and save the rest of it for iced coffee. But like in the morning, I like it hot coffee. Can the Chargers afford both Warford and Fuller? They can. So I said this in the last stream, but I'll say it now because obviously we have those technical difficulties. I currently have them at 15.7 in spending space. That's where I'm at. Now I've been tweeting out my spreadsheet. I had one mistake in my spreadsheet. Admittedly, I was subtracting something that I should have been adding, and so I had a little bit of a swing of like 3 million in space. So that's how we got. That's why a lot of you that are doing the math with me, it should have been 12 and change. That's how we got up to 15 and change. That's my fault. This is my first year like doing the spreadsheet, so like and really like having it super organized like that. So I'm trying my best to make sure that I have an accurate number for you guys, but that's my mistake. I'll try and make sure my accounting is better moving forward. Keep those questions coming. I'm scrolling through looking for good ones. Yeah, so we talked about the Orlando Brown trade. The Ravens, because of the new CBA, the Ravens can make him play. He has to show up for training camp or else he loses his accrued season, which he needs to hit free agency. So the Ravens aren't in a position where like they have to trade him or else they get nothing out of it. They can force him to play and they're a better team with him than they aren't with him. So they can sort of wait for a deal that's totally worth it. So if the Chargers were to trade for Orlando Brown, they'd have to give up likely the 13th pick. And I just don't see the Chargers doing that. They value their draft picks too much. So Jerry Tillery has been awful. I don't know if I totally agree with that. He wasn't good as a rookie, but he showed some flashes last year. Like he was pretty efficient rushing the passer as an end. So maybe that's an indication that he's better as an edge player than an interior defensive lineman, which is what they drafted him to be. They drafted him to be a 3 technique defensive tackle. So maybe Brandon Staley can find a way to get him on the edge a little bit more, get him one-on-one with tackles. And that's where he did a good job out there. Like he looked more like an NFL caliber player out there than he did on the interior. But I think he's going to keep getting better. He really put in a lot of time and effort last year in the gym to get his body to a different level, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I thought he was fine last year. Like I thought he was definitely a below average player as a rookie. Like he was not good. I think last year he was closer to what the Chargers were expecting when they drafted him in the first round. What else we got? Am I one of those the cap is fake guys? I don't think that there are like the cap is fake guys. Like the cap is fake. Like it's not like there's a lot of things that you can do to massage the cap, whether it's restructuring, cutting guys. Like the Saints were $100 million over the cap and they got under in 2 weeks. So like when guys say the cap isn't fake, like, right? Like there is a salary cap that you can't spend over. But if you are in a position where you are over the cap, there's a ton of things that you can do to massage it and get under. Like there's never really a situation where you're like SOL and you can't do anything and you're over the cap. Like you can always do something. Now, we've talked about this before. You can restructure contracts to get under the cap and get under the cap for this year, but you eventually are going to run into a situation where you have to wear that money. Like there's not a situation where you can just get money off your cap sheet unless you cut a guy. If you're restructuring contracts, that's just deferring money to later years, and eventually you gotta face that money. Like every dollar paid to a player has to be accounted on the cap at some point during the contract. That could be in the form of dead money if you cut a guy. That could be in the form of a prorated salary or prorated signing bonus. It could be in the form of base salary. But every dollar that gets into the pocket of a player has to be accounted for in the salary cap. So there are ways around it, but eventually down the road, you're going to have to face those charges. What does a comp pick for Hunter Henry look like? So 12.5 AAV is going to be, probably a fourth. Yeah. In the formula, though. So Lindsley's contract, right, is 62.5 over 5 years. That's also 12.5. So effectively what will happen is the Lindsley contract will cancel out the Henry contract. So there'll be no comp picks there. That's effectively how the comp formula works. Now the Rayshon contract, right? 4 years, 35. That's like, what is that? Just under 9, 875, I think it is. Let's look. 875, right? They signed Matt Filer to 7 per year. Those will probably cancel out, right? So that's basically how the comp formula works. You look at contracts that are in the similar AAV, and they'll cancel each other out. And then if there's one left over that isn't canceled out, that's where the comp pick comes in. And that's what happened. So the Chargers had, Melvin Gordon left. They signed Brian Bulaga. They signed Chris Harris. Adrian Phillips left. Derek Watt left. All those canceled out. And what was left over? Phillip Rivers at $25 million a year. And that was the second highest free agent contract given out in terms of AAV. And that becomes the second comp pick in the draft. Make sense? At 97? All right. What else we got? I'm going to do the full. So we'll do like 10 more minutes in here. I do eventually have to write. Got to get that Chargers free agency reset up for you guys for tomorrow morning. Let me know. Have you guys been liking those resets? Seems like I figured it would give you guys a good way to start the morning. Everything you need to know. A little top 10 action. Give you guys some names to look for. Go through all of the different developments that happen, what they mean for the Chargers. So I thought it was a good way to give you guys some information. All right, cool. Yeah, so this is a good question. If you worry about Achilles injuries, why is Eric Fisher your number one free agent? Because left tackle is a more important position than safety. So like I would be willing to take a risk on a guy with an Achilles injury at that position versus at safety, where it doesn't, it's not really a valuable position. So I feel like that'd be a waste of money. You could find you can find a safety in the third, fourth round of the draft, right? You're not going to find a starting left tackle typically in the third, fourth round of the draft unless it's David Bakhtiari. So, I mean, it's a good point, but I feel like left tackle is such an important position that you at least have to kick the tires on some of these left tackles just to see. Josh Kelly, your breakout player. I would say Josh Kelly on offense and Nasir Adderley on defense. How about that? He's going to be the starting free safety. Maybe Brandon Staley gets a ton out of him. All right, let's see what else we got. Tyron Johnson, the number 3. It'll be Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton fighting for that, unless they get one of these receivers on a really cheap contract. I thought Keelan Cole would have been a guy that would have made sense. I covered him in Jacksonville, speed guy, but he signed with the Jets. Tranquil breakout, I think that's possible. We'll see how he comes back from that ankle injury. What role will Nwosu play in 2021 if Tillery will be used as an edge rusher? So I'm not saying that Tillery is going to be used as an edge rusher. I think primarily he'll be used as a defensive lineman. But I'm saying, and say they have, Brandon Staley uses a lot of different fronts. Sometimes it's 4 men, sometimes it's 3 men, sometimes it's 5 men. There's a lot of different funky stuff with his fronts to try and confuse opposing quarterbacks. So I'm saying, and say they go to a 4-man front in a nickel package, right, where they have 4 defensive linemen, maybe they can get Jerry Tillery on the edge in that situation. So it's saying in certain packages, in certain situations, getting Jerry Tillery on the edge to try and capitalize on some of the things that he does well out there. Now, Chenna is going to be primarily an edge player. It'll be Joey Bosa and Chenna on either side to start the season, at least the way the roster is currently projected. But yeah, that's a good. I think Chenna Nwosu is another potential breakout player. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see if Brandon Staley is going to be able to get the most out of these guys. I mean, that's what he's done everywhere he's been, especially outside linebacker. So, right, it would make sense that Chenna would have a really good season. You know, the question is, the previous coaching staff was always reticent to give Chenna Nwosu significant snaps because they felt like his productivity fell off when he was playing a lot of snaps. I don't know if I fully agree with that. I always thought that they should give him more time, but I think there was this feeling that if they gave him more snaps, he got tired, his body broke down a little bit, he had some injuries, and he wasn't as productive of a player, so he was better in that rotational role. That's what the old coaching staff thought. What will the new coaching staff think? We'll have to wait and see on that. But if Brandon Staley's specialty is an outside linebackers coach. That's how he came up. That's what he did for Vic Fangio. So if there's a guy who's going to get the most out of Chenna and turn him into a 3-down player, a guy that can do what Leonard Floyd did and gets 10.5 sacks in a season, it's Brandon Staley. All right, I'm going to take a few more because I feel like we've now been doing this for over an hour between the two streams. Apologies again, everybody, about the technical difficulties. And before I do some more questions, in the description below this video, there is a link. Check it out right now. There is a link. You can click on it. That's what links are for. If you click the link, it'll take you to a new tab. And in that new tab, you will have the opportunity to subscribe to The Athletic for just $1 a month. I feel like I'm on a game show, right? You will get an opportunity. $1 a month. I gotta figure out where the camera is. This is botched. $1 a month. The best deal. Wait, there's no link? Oh, God. Not again. I thought I just checked this. There's definitely a link. I see the link. Liar in the chat. All right. Link below. $1 a month. You can get your subscription to The Athletic. It's the best deal you're going to get. You get all my content. All right. Every single morning, I've been doing these Chargers free agency resets. It's all the information you could possibly want. I'm reacting live to every single signing, giving you instant reaction, everything you need to know. Moving forward, here's what you can look forward to. Monday, we're going to be doing a live chat. Not like this. It'll be subscriber only, and I'll be answering all your questions in written form. I do them weekly during the season, a little more sporadically after the season. But that's what you can look for on Monday. My mock draft 2.0 coming next week for you. That'll be a post-free agency mock draft. All right? That's going to be even closer to what it could be, and I'm excited for that one, and I got a big feature coming out on Tuesday. So subscribe to The Athletic, $1 a month. I see people leaving, but we're not done. We're answering more questions. So stay in here because there's more content coming your way over the next 10 minutes. Let's keep looking for questions. Oh my God. I don't like answering the people that put the question in over and over and over and over again. I know you really want your question answered, but be patient. There's a lot of people in here that want their questions answered. Looking for a good one here. Let's see. So is Kyle Pitts more important than Slater? Don't think so now, but they have Jared Cook. Richard Sherman isn't really a fit in the scheme. He would have been a fit in Gus Bradley's scheme, but he really thrives in that cover 3 Seattle scheme where he can be instinctive and play a lot of zone. I think at this age, I don't know if he fits with what Brandon Staley is trying to do. So I would say probably not to that. Derwin James, comeback player of the year. Yeah, if he can stay healthy. Cole Toner at right guard, he did some nice things, but I don't think they can rely on him as a starter. I think they got to bring somebody out there. KJ Hill or Joe Reed. Not for that number 3 spot. based on how all those guys played last year. It'd be Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson leading that competition. KJ Hill's more of a fourth wide receiver. They like his route running. They like how polished he is, but he had a couple drops last year. He doesn't really bring that speed factor. He's more of like a sub for Keenan Allen in terms of his play style. Really precise route runner, good release, polished in that way, but not really like a plus athlete. And Joe Reed, I don't know what Joe Reed is, honestly. I thought he was going to be like a Deebo Samuel light. For whatever reason, the Chargers offense didn't really feature him much. He didn't bring much as a kick returner. He didn't bring much as a special teams coverage guy or gunner. So he's going to have to show some significant improvement to make the roster. Because if you're on the roster, you got to bring something, Ideally, you bring multiple things. So if you aren't going to be a starter, you better bring some value on special teams, right? So Joe Reed wasn't a starter, wasn't bringing value on special teams. I thought they could have gotten him the ball a little bit more. So, I just didn't think they were really creative with how they used him. When he did get the ball on some jet sweeps in those situations, I thought he did some nice things. He is a really good athlete. But, they didn't really – it was very disjointed. When he came on the field, they'd give him the ball and it got kind of predictable. They weren't using him for disguises. They weren't using him in ways that I thought they could use him to sort of maximize his skill set. So we'll see if the new offensive staff can think of a way to use him better, because he is an interesting piece. And those guys have value in today's NFL, the sort of running back, wide receiver hybrid guys, big, physical, fast, all those things. You can have a place in the NFL, but there has to be the vision from the offensive staff to use you the right way to get the most out of you and make you a valuable player. What else we got? Will Fuller signed with the Dolphins already, so he's not an option. When do I expect another move from the Chargers? I think one could happen at any moment. So stay plugged in. Do you think the Bears try to trade Fuller? It doesn't. I think they're cutting him. That's what it seems like to me. The Raiders situation was weird, but our Kevin Fishbain confirmed that they're releasing him. So, it makes sense to try and trade him. But if they like are desperate for cap relief, right, then they can't really wait on a trade. If you need the relief right away to make sure that you're under the cap, and you got a move you need to make, right, hypothetically, then that move has to be made immediately so you can clear the cap. If you wait for a trade partner, it could take a while to try and negotiate something that works for you, where you get the necessary compensation. It's a little more of a drawn out process than if you just cut them, you get the space immediately. All right. I cannot see Groy starting a guard. Yeah, so Fuller, I think so his cap hit is 20, but when you trade a guy, it's not the cap hit, it's the base salary that you take on. So, this is interesting. So he had a $25.5 million signing bonus, and it looks like he had a restructure in there. But so his cap hit is a $13 million base salary, $6 million signing bonus proration, and then $1 million in additional bonuses. If he was traded, then the team that traded for him would take on just the base salary, $13 million. And then whoever trades him away would take on the signing bonus as dead money, whatever the proration is for that. What's interesting about his contract is they added void years when they did a restructure. And so the Chargers could hypothetically trade for Kyle Fuller if that's what the Bears want to do. And they could take on that base salary, turn some of that base salary into signing bonus, prorate it over the length of the contract, and save $4 million in space this year if that's something they wanted to do. Anything else I didn't get to? Apologies again for the little technical difficulty. Kaiser breakout. Like I've been saying, I don't think inside linebackers have a massive role in Staley's scheme from what I've seen on tape. So it's hard to think that any of these inside linebackers are going to have breakout seasons. But Kenneth Murray is a really interesting player, so I could see Brandon Staley finding some different ways to use him. But I think he said that he's going to be, off the ball. So I don't think they're going to use Kenneth Murray as a pass rusher, edge rusher type guy. He's going to be an inside linebacker. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Quisenberry at right guard? I don't think so. Getting some Mike Williams questions. Go watch my stream from yesterday if you want my Mike Williams takes. I spent, what guys, 12 minutes, 13 minutes, something like that, talking about Mike Williams. All right, we got a comment from Brazil. What's up, Felipe? We're global. Hashtag global. Yeah, I saw Reggie Ragland. Giants signed him. When is Kenny Galladay going to sign, man? Anything else I didn't touch on, guys? Get those questions in. If we get Warford, draft a left tackle, bring back Tevye, swing tackle, Lamp as guard, I think that's possible. Depends what the money would. Depends what they'd cost. All right, I keep getting someone keeps asking predictions for the remainder of free agency. I think they could look into tackle. I think they could look into safety. I think they could look into corner. And I think they could look into defensive line depth. That would be the 4 places I'd be looking. Oh, we got Panama in the house. Hell yeah. South America stand up. Panama's South America? Or is it Central America? I just botched that. Sorry if I did. I think it's South America. Tevye is better than Pipkins, definitely. How much better? Depends on how much better Pipkins gets this offseason. Got people asking about my hair products. Does the hair look that good? I honestly don't know what it is. I get it from CVS for like $15. Alaska. Oh, hell yeah. I love Alaska. I went to Denali National Park a few years ago. Gorgeous state. I would suggest anybody that has not been to Alaska, go to Alaska. We got Mexico in the building. Okay, it's Panama, Central America. That's my bad. Gilbert does not have better hair. Take that back. He gets his hair cut every week and a half. That's why Gilberto. That's why it looks like Gilberto has better hair than I do, but it's not true. Oh my God, I'm tweeting that comment out. You look like a Walmart Elvis Presley. That is so good. Amazing. Thank you for that comment. Just that's so funny. Walmart Elvis Presley, baby. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining the stream. I'd like to apologize again for the technical difficulties. But what I will say is that's not the last time we'll have technical difficulties because I'm not particularly good at this stuff. But I'm learning, and it feels like we got some good energy in here. It feels like we got some good engagement. So I'm going to keep doing these. Our last live stream of free agency, though, will be tomorrow at 5 p.m. Okay? And then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with these. But I really just wanted to have an opportunity at the end of every day during free agency to talk to you guys, give you guys my thoughts, take some questions. I'm really happy with how they're going. I think everyone's getting some good stuff out of this. So we'll keep doing them in the future. I don't know exactly what we're going to do with it, but I will obviously update you guys on Twitter. Make sure you're following me there at Daniel R. Popper. I assume all of you are because that's how I gave out the information about this stream in the first place. But listen, in the description below this video, there is a link. It is to my story I wrote today on the Jared Cook signing. It has everything you need to know about it. The cap situation, how it affects the draft, how he'll fit into the offense, what his 2021 impact will be, all that stuff. That link right there, you click it, you get The Athletic for $1 a month. That's it. $12 for the year. Think about all of the things that you buy for $12 over the course of a year. Think about it. You could get all of my content for that price. $12 for the year, $1 a month. So if you are not subscribed, all right, I promise you I'm a much better writer than I am talker. Okay? So click that link in the description and you get the deal. $1 a month and you get access to the entire site. Okay? I promise you I put in so much work to make the subscription worth it. As always, people in the chat, let everyone know that this is worth it. I know you guys think that. I know you believe it. So let everybody know. Okay. We will do this tomorrow at 5 p.m. That'll be our last one of free agency. Until then, thank you guys very much. And make sure you're on the lookout tomorrow morning for my free agency reset. That'll be the last one of the week. Thank you. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.